Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast. I'm David Chen, and joining me today are,
Devendra Hardwar.
Jeff Kanata.
and joining us also, she is the Deputy Entertainment Editor at Mashable.com, Angie Han. Welcome back to the Slash Filmcast. Angie, how are you tonight?
I'm great. I'm very happy to be here.
Happy to have you on. And so today is actually the first day we're kind of switching up the format of the Slash Filmcast. And
Ooh.
we are going to be doing one in-depth review of our movie of the week, which is going to be Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Although, Live, Die, Repeat style, apparently they've been changing the title of this movie. Do you guys see that they've been changing the title because Birds of Prey is actually a pretty confusing title. But it is now Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. So hopefully that'll make things more
Nothing's
clear.
fantabulous anymore?
Nothing
Yeah.
fantabulous anymore. It's just Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
But we'll
Oh
talk
my
about
God,
After
you
the
had me
box
all-
office was not so fantabulous, they had to be like, okay, we can't live with this title. It's not fantabulous.
I
Dave,
think
you
they
had-
had actually also dropped the Fantabulous title at some point a while
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
But Jeff, where did I have you? Where did I-
You had me all geared up to say the entire lengthy title at every moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
you
we
need to
talked
fit
about
that into your limerick, Jeff.
And now I'm
like
gonna
the
have
whole
to-
title.
Yeah, I worked really hard. Now I'm just throwing that in the garbage. 'cause
Yep.
of- and I'm going to have to just call it Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey the entire time.
So Angie, on last week's episode of Slash Filmcast, Jeff committed to saying the entire title every time the movie was mentioned on this episode.
Oh.
But since it's changed a bunch of times, I think he's probably gonna not do that, even though he did all the vocal exercises to make it happen.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I feel like that was a cruel joke on your part because by last week they had definitely already changed it to Birds of Prey. So if nobody told him not to do that, then that was just you guys being mean to poor Jeff.
Oh.
Thank you, Angie. Finally, someone understands what I go
Jeff
through.
doesn't want any spoilers, so I think a title change maybe it's a spoiler to Jeff. I don't know. I don't know anymore.
All right. Well, in any case, after our review, we're going to do an After Dark where we discuss the Oscars. So a lot of stuff. I think we'll have a lot to say about the Oscars. So that's going to be a lot of fun. You can find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. So let's dive in and get to our review of Birds of Prey. And then here I'm going to put the trailer for Birds of Prey.
You mean Harley Quinn,
Colin,
Birds of Prey.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. That was from the trailer of Birds of Prey, a.k.a. Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, a.k.a. Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. After splitting with the Joker, Harley Quinn joins superheroes Black Canary, Huntress, and Renee Montoya to save a young girl from an evil crime lord. You know, folks, this weekend I got to see a movie that had a budget of around $90 million. It opened to around $30 million, and it was described as a huge success by all of the trades. Actually, I'm sorry. I've gotten my notes mixed up. That's actually my notes from our week where we did Ford v Ferrari. No. This week, actually, the budget was the same and the amount of money was the same, but the movie was deemed a failure. So I don't know what's going on, but suffice to say, the movie made around $30 million. People didn't think that was very much. Big come down from Suicide Squad, although I think for a movie with this character and with this budget level, it didn't cost $200 million. It's doing pretty well.
I would say, Dave, that it is ridiculous on the face of it, that data point that you bring up, and you could read a lot into it. But you know as well as I know that the truth of the matter is it's all about expectation. And the Birds of Prey was expected to make much more than that, and Ford v Ferrari was not expected to make that much. It was expected to be Oscar bait. And so that really explains the interpretation of the same monetary value in two different ways.
I guess my encouragement, Jeffrey, is just question where these expectations are coming from. Question the expectations. But in any case, let's get to the actual movie itself. Angie Han, I'm curious what your relationship has been with the Harley Quinn character. Is this a character you're a fan of? Did you like Margot Robbie's performance of her in Suicide Squad? Were you looking forward to seeing a movie that featured this character? And then what do you think of the final film overall?
Well, first of all, that is several questions in a row, so I will go one by one.
What a run-on question, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it really was, Dave. You gotta get better at that.
Thanks.
I didn't grow up being like a huge Harley Quinn fan or anything. I was aware of her. I didn't dislike her or anything. I just didn't have any strong feelings about her either way. That said, when Margot Robbie played Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad, I thought she was fantastic in that movie. I mean, the movie itself obviously has quite a few problems, but
Mhm.
but her performance in it was not one of them. I thought she was a real standout. So I was very curious to see where they were going to go with her after that. And where they went with her is this movie, which I'm not even going to bother saying the title because we don't know what it is. Um, yeah, and I thought this movie was solid. It didn't knock my socks off, but it also wasn't something that I walked out being like, oh well, that was very disappointing. It leans into Suicide Squad a lot more than I thought I would, and I think one of the biggest surprises was how well it worked, despite being more connected to Suicide Squad than I thought it would be.
All right. So overall, you thought it was fine, which I think is kind of pretty close to what the general consensus is. I think is about this
Yeah.
movie.
The new title for Birds of Prey is It's Fine. It's fine. Not the Fantabulous Journey. It's fine.
Fine,
It's-
a movie.
Eh?
Birds of Prey and the totally fine emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
Yes.
Indeed. All right, Devendra Hardawar, your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, kind of echoing Angie's thoughts here. I found it's a fun movie, but I think also pretty uneven. Actually, the movie I had in mind as I kept watching this was Scott Pilgrim, and I think these are both films about like they're very energetic. You know, sometimes comedic films with a lot of action. They shift from different styles too. Like there's animation in this. This movie is all over the place, and I wish it had maybe a little more control over how it did it. Like there are flash forwards and flashbacks in ways that confuse me, and then the movie references, oh hey, are you confused? Yes, I am confused. When you're doing that with like a big action scene, there's a scene where she goes and blows up like a police squad, which I guess we can talk about in spoilers or something, but it felt like the most random thing to come out of nowhere, and the last thing you want for an action scene is to have like those stakes and no idea what's happening. There is some fun stuff, and I think the action later on, especially like the hand-to-hand stuff, gets to be really fun. There's some really great choreography between all the characters, really, especially Harley Quinn, but I think Huntress gets a lot of action. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, also from Scott Pilgrim. She is a lot of fun in this movie, and I kind of enjoy how they have fun with her character as the sort of like stereotypical Kill Bill revenge story, and they kind of make light of that. Even though the movie's doing that, I also really enjoyed her performance and her character. I wish there was more of her in the movie. We'll talk more about like specific actors, but I really want to know what is happening with Chris Messina in this movie, because I love this guy. First of all, like I've loved him from like the Mindy Project and what was it, Sharp Objects. Like this is a guy that, you know, he is. First of all, I did a double take because I was not following the press for this movie. I was like, is that Chris Messina? Just like being a weird lapdog for Ewan McGregor's character.
Oh, it sure is. What he's
sure
doing
is.
in this movie is being the prettiest Batman associated villain since Cillian Murphy in Batman Begins.
He really is. He's also basically doing what that henchman from Mission Impossible 2 was doing, just like being really, really like, oh man, I actually love this villain guy, and just like being in love with him. I did have the feeling about Ewan McGregor's character, just like the feeling I had watching The Gentleman. Is this anti-gay? I don't know. This is another thing where it's like, why is this villain just foppish for no reason? I don't understand what's happening here. He at least seems to be having fun with it. I think the movie overall, like there's a lot of good stuff in here. It probably didn't need to be close to 2 hours long. I feel like if this was a tight 90 minutes and just kept up that energy, it would have been a lot better.
All right. Also, Angie, I love that reference to Cillian Murphy because
Yes,
it calls to mind that basically you've been secretly ranking every actor in the DC universe up until this point in terms of prettiness. Is that right?
That is not what I said. What I said is he's the prettiest Batman associated villain since Cillian Murphy in Batman Begins, because Cillian Murphy in Batman Begins was so damn pretty that I had trouble paying attention to what was happening in the movie when he was on.
I'm
I
more
think
of
that's
a
a yes.
I'm
I
more
think
of a
it's yes.
Bane man myself. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Do you think he's the prettiest villain since you think he's prettier than Chris Messina in Birds of Prey? Or what do you want?
I mean, he's certainly well built. Can we acknowledge that
I
at
didn't
least?
say he wasn't well built. We're talking about pretty. Do
I
you
can't
think
even see his
Bane?
face.
You don't really
How
see
can
his
he be
face,
pretty?
really. So you can kind of use your imagination as a thing, which is something I
No.
prefer. Okay.
Ugh.
Anyway, Jeff
Dave, no.
Jeff Kanata, your thoughts on Birds of Prey / whatever the hell the movie's called at this point?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts about Harley Quinn: Birds of Prey are best summed up in the form of a limerick.
Oh, nice.
And before I say my limerick, I do want to say I think Angie needs to be on way more often because she is the only one that has given it to you as you deserve it to be given. All right.
Listen, we try, okay?
We try, but we've just sort of been beaten into submission at this point. You know, it's like yelling at a brick wall. You know, but Angie found she found the flaws in that wall, the weak points in the
Yes.
wall, and she's exploiting them.
Angie
Listen,
has been. Go ahead.
I've known Dave for so long, and I've been giving him crap every single day that I've known him.
She has been
Just-
verbally savaging me for almost 2 decades at this point. So.
And I love her for it.
All right,
And
now
I-
you're just aging.
And I
We're
just
so-
want
so-
want her to be here more often. That's all I'm saying.
All right, fair enough.
All right,
Thank
Limerick.
you, Jeff.
here comes the limerick. DC movies cause debates, but I can tell you this one rates pretty high, and the reason why is action scenes in roller skates.
Ah,
That was a pretty
Okay.
rough meter
I
there
know.
on that limerick.
I
Jeff.
know. Hey, I had to do that. I had to throw out my old one. I had to do that in 4 minutes.
Do you really have an old one? And if so, can we hear it?
I'm not going to give Dave the satisfaction. I'm shocked that I seem to be the person that liked this movie the most because I didn't really like this movie that much, but I feel like I liked it more than everybody so far.
I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it too.
I think I think this movie is fun, and you guys have both said that it's fun. It is fun, and I think for me the action sequences are worth the price of admission. They are really cool. I mean, we'll talk about specifics and spoilers, but the movie realizes that we can have a really fun, wacky time in the context of doing stuff that's cool. And I had somebody say to me as I, came out of the movie, I was talking to some friends and that hadn't seen it, and they said, what is it worth seeing? And is it DC's Deadpool? And I went, no, it is not DC's Deadpool. So don't think it's not that fun. You know what I'm saying? And I think it could have been. It could have really gone there. And the movie flirts with that. Devendra kind of mentioned some of the time manipulation and saying things out of order and kind of the unfaithful or the untrustworthy narrator. What's the phrase I'm looking for?
Unreliable. Narrator, yeah.
Yes, unreliable narrator. I wish it had leaned into that more. I wish it had been willing to go a little more Deadpool-y with the narrative. I think the plot of this movie is pretty dumb and pretty thin.
Oh yeah.
And that's unfortunate because it could have been a much better movie. As it is, it's just a fun movie, and it's enough fun that I would recommend seeing it. And I think visually it's interesting. I think the action sequences are shot really, really well. And it's fun watching Ewan McGregor play the Joker because, we've seen certain characters play the Joker before and a lot of different Jokers through time. And it's cool seeing Ewan McGregor play the Joker for the first time, which is, I love Ewan McGregor. He's always good. And it's awesome that he gets to play the Joker in this movie.
Jeff, I hate to be a stickler to the facts on this podcast, but I don't think he actually played the Joker in this movie. I think he played an entirely different character.
Yeah.
You're telling me that
There's a little mask going on there. Yeah.
You're telling me that a character who dresses in wild pastel suits and is constantly laughing as he does ridiculous things and has a henchman and a weird mansion that's full of goofy props
Well,
isn't
see,
the Joker?
he collects art. You see, I don't
Mm.
think the Joker was much of a fan of the art.
But he's grinning and laughing as he's doing all the, and he manipulates. He's not.
Not everyone who smiles and manipulates people is the Joker, Jeff.
But this is a DC movie about Harley Quinn. Surely he must be the Joker.
Mm.
I
Because
will say that while watching the movie, it felt like I walked out feeling like, oh, it's obvious that they needed this to be an arc about her leaving the Joker, but for whatever reason, they couldn't put the Joker in the movie. So then instead, they replaced him with this other guy who is not the Joker, but serves as a weird narrative stand-in for the Joker.
yeah, this movie really, really wants to erase Jared Leto's Joker from the canon. And
Don't we all?
I mean, it does to the point where it literally any visual of the Joker is closer to like, you know, the Joker from the old Batman '60s show than it is to anything Jared Leto was doing. But it's you know, I'm being honest when I say I think Ewan McGregor is always great, even when he's in bad stuff. I think he's fun to watch in this, but it is very similar to what. If he had been cast in as the Joker, I think he would have basically done this performance.
So I think it was Matt Singer at his review at ScreenCrush.com of this movie where he says here, quote, everyone in the movie talks about Joker constantly. It gives Birds of Prey a weird, vaguely Poochie-esque energy where the people we're watching are constantly talking about some dude who's not even in the movie, end quote. So for those who don't know who Poochie is, in the Simpsons, season 8, episode 14, there was an episode called The Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie Show where like a character named Poochie was introduced to Itchy and Scratchy, and like Homer Simpson had all these notes for what Poochie should do. Like he said, like, you know, Poochie should be in more scenes, and when he's not in the scene, everyone should be asking, "Where's Poochie?" You know, and that's kind of what's going on in this movie, in the sense that the absence of Joker hangs over this movie in a pretty significant way, in my opinion. He's kind of like weirdly not in the sense that like the Joker is doing all these crimes that would be relevant to the plot of this movie, but he is kind of the animating force behind what Harley Quinn's actions are. And so
it is funny how the idea of the Joker is more interesting and compelling than Jared Leto's actual Joker performance.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense that they didn't want to put Joker in this movie because I don't know if you guys know this, but there was just a Joker movie that came out that didn't star Jared Leto, and it made over $1 billion.
I've never heard of this movie. Who was in it?
It was nominated for 10 Academy Awards and won one last night.
Yeah, by a famous vegan. A famous vegan. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I can understand like if people hadn't seen Suicide Squad or they're just watching this and it's like, well, I just saw the Joker. Why isn't Joaquin the Joker in this movie? You know, I could see
These
that.
timelines are a mess. What is happening?
It is pretty funny to imagine the character from that Joker movie dating this Harley Quinn.
Yeah, that would be.
You know, because famously that Joker is all about a guy who pretty much can't date anybody.
And he's not having fun in that movie. You know, he's not having fun in the movie Joker. Certainly not as much fun as Jared Leto is having in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, the idea that guy would have a room with a big slide and you know, it doesn't really fit.
Yeah, it doesn't really work. So I can understand why the filmmakers just completely avoided it altogether. It struck me as a very sensible decision. Okay, I'll just say my thoughts and then we can get to spoilers. I thought this movie was pretty good. Not bad, not great. Certainly not the Deadpool of the DC universe. Margot Robbie is just awesome in this role.
Yeah.
I have my first introduction to Harley Quinn was through Batman the Animated Series. Apparently, this is a character that was like created in the early '90s and you know became a part of the comics shortly after that. And but like the definitive kind of depiction of Harley Quinn was in Batman the Animated Series. And in my opinion, Margot Robbie embodies that sensibility so much. Like it feels like a perfect live action incarnation of that character. So I think she's awesome. And not only that, but you remember how Rogue One is, you know, I don't know what your opinion on Rogue One is. Angie, are you a Rogue One fan? Are you a not Rogue One fan? What are your thoughts?
I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it.
I think one of the things that I appreciate about Rogue One is that arguably, depending on how you feel about this, arguably it makes Star Wars Episode 4 make more sense, right? Because it's
Yes.
like, oh, well, there was this weakness. Why would they design this extremely valuable weapon with this ridiculous weakness? And then in Rogue One, they actually explain, actually, it was part of his plan to do that. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes more sense now.
Just like how when I saw Star Wars, the original movie, I was like, it's so weird that Han's last name is Solo. I hope there's a whole movie that
Oh.
explains that.
Angie,
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I've turned on. You're no longer welcome here.
It's bound to happen.
So I would say this is a movie, Birds of Prey, that retroactively makes Suicide Squad make more sense, because
No, let's not go too far, Dave.
Suicide
far.
Squad is a catastrophe of a movie, but what's amazing about Suicide Squad is they're hiring all these people to join this Suicide Squad. You know, you got the guy who can make fires with his hands, and Will Smith plays that guy who's a super sharpshooter, and then there's
The
a
guy who can climb walls,
the
but
guy who
not,
can
not
climb
what you want.
anything, you know, and all these people, and then it's like Harley Quinn, an insane person, and it's like, well, why would you hire this person? It doesn't make any sense. After you watch this movie, you're like, oh, I actually get it now. I actually understand why that person would be useful in a Suicide Squad.
I also
can't
feel
wait-
like this movie has her building off of the skills that she learned in Suicide Squad, like how to put together a Suicide Squad.
Indeed. Go ahead, Jeff. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I can't wait for all the other movies to explain to make it even more sense. The wall climbing guy movie, and
Well, climbing guy's dead.
I know, but we see the movie about him and we realize, oh, he was essential to the Suicide Squad. I get it.
You start with him falling, and he lives a whole life in those
It
2
makes
hours.
it,
Well,
it makes
No,
his
it could be
death
a
all the
prequel.
more tragic. you
Yeah,
know?
it could be a prequel.
Yeah.
It could be a prequel.
Like
exactly.
Rogue One, we
Yeah.
were just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why, when they say, many people gave their lives for these plans in episode 4, you go, oh, I remember that. And then now in Suicide Squad, when climbing guy dies, you'd be like, oh, climbing guy, I know so much about him and his backstory.
First of all, just to make it clear, the character's name is Slipknot. I know no one remembers that, but
I remembered.
how
what
could
is
you forget?
what is hilarious about that? That is by far, when I think of Suicide Squad, that is the one kind of moment of the movie that I remember. This character named Slipknot just getting introduced, and Joel Kinnaman saying, "Meet Slipknot, the man who can climb anything," and then literally 10 minutes later, that character is killed. And it's like, why introduce him at all? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
No, it's to establish the stakes so that you know it's a suicide mission. That's
Yeah,
why
this
they're
isn't-
called the Suicide Squad.
This isn't Everybody Lives Squad.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, and then the other thing I'll say about this movie that I enjoyed is just I thought the hand-to-hand combat was great. The stunt
good,
coordination
yeah.
was apparently done by the company of Chad Stahelski, who is responsible for the John Wick movies. Chad
Yes.
Stahelski himself was brought in to do some reshoots on the action scenes, is my understanding, and I thought he did a great job. There are I'll just say not that many characters that have superpowers in this movie, and so as a result, they need to give you the old razzle dazzle with something else,
Mhm.
and they decide to do that with some really great hand-to-hand fight sequences. So
I also feel like you can tell the exact scenes where Chad Stahelski like really spent some time to. Like, there's one like fight in the police station where like there's choreography I've never seen before
Yeah,
in my
we'll
life,
get
and I've
to
seen
it.
a lot of stuff. It's crazy.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. So anyway, there's a bunch of things to enjoy in this movie. And overall, I had a positive impression. A few things I didn't like number one, the Fight Club-esque narration, right? Where, as you guys have pointed out, she'll be talking, and then you'll like literally reach a climax of an action scene, and then she'll be like, "Hold on for a second, let me talk about this thing that happened 3 months ago." And it's like, okay, I wanted to see where that was going, but it like grinds the movie to a halt in a way that I don't think benefits it. And so I wasn't really a fan of that, but I thought overall the movie did a good job. We have more to talk about in spoilers, but before we get to that, we got to thank our sponsor for today, Native. Jeff, you want to tell people about Native?
I would love to tell people about Native. I would prefer if they could just smell me. You know what I'm saying? Because that would give you everything you need to know. I wouldn't even have to talk if you just could smell me, because I right now smell fantastic. You know what I smell like, guys? I smell like eucalyptus and mint. which are meaningless words to me. That's why I wish you could smell me. I don't even know how to express it. It's delightful. This
Hey
is my
Jeff,
new.
hey Jeff, I'm wearing the same thing, so I feel like I'm smelling you right now.
Whoa, we're smell buddies. We're odor friends. This is great. Honestly, Devindra and I are both wearing Native deodorant right now, and really the beginning and the end of why is because of the way it smells. Now, there are other reasons to try Native. There are the ingredients. This is a deodorant made with ingredients you've actually heard of, like coconut oil, shea butter. People wear deodorants every day that full of things that they don't even understand what the ingredients are. Things like parabens and talc and aluminium. You know, it's nice to have something that's actually made with ingredients that you've heard of, and it works. People dig it. They have over 9,000 5-star reviews from happy customers who've made the switch to Native. My wife, really, much more than I, has good taste and good smell. And she has actually asked me to use my Native deodorant before because she likes how it smells so much. We also have the coconut and vanilla, which is their most popular scent, which is delightful as well. There's a bunch. They have lavender and rose, cucumber and mint, eucalyptus and mint. They have some special rotating ones sometimes, which is pretty cool. And there's no risk to try. It's free shipping on every order. And Native offers 30 days free returns and exchanges in the United States. So check it out. Give them a shot. They have something for everybody, and you don't have any risk to try. Guess what? We're going to give you 20% off your first purchase when you go to nativedeodorant.com and use the promo code FILMCAST during checkout. That is 20% off your first purchase by going to Native Deodorant, NATIVEDEODORANT.com, and then using that promo code FILMCAST, FILMCAST, all one word, at checkout. I'm telling you, this is cool. Also, I have to tell you, they have just relaunched their toothpaste line. So they're doing natural toothpastes, but that don't taste or feel like natural toothpaste. Some natural toothpastes are gritty and foam a lot and aren't very pleasant. Not the Native toothpaste. They have 2 minty flavors. So they got toothpaste and deodorant at Native. Check it out, nativedeodorant.com, promo code FILMCAST.
Let's get to spoilers for Birds of Prey starting right now. So right away, yeah, Devindra, I just want to mention that scene at the police station is amazing. Like the highlight of the movie, in my opinion. Where
I agree, dude. It's awesome.
Well, there are a couple, right? There's the fight scene at the police station, which I think is incredible. Like she does this move where she like dives between a guy's legs and like flips him from behind him. It's incredible. But there's also the shootout, like weird shootout where I was like, do these cops have guns? Do these cops like, can they protect their own, station? Because she's just laying waste to them with like nothing. It's just hilarious.
I
That's
love
why
the color
Batman
of
has
that
so much
scene.
work. The cops are bad.
Yeah, the cops are real bad.
Yeah, and Gotham being a cop is a sweet gig because you're just like, we basically all we do is turn on this lamp.
Yep.
So yeah, the scene when she walks into the police station with the beanbag / grenade launcher / whatever, with this bandolier of all the cartridges, and like she needs to like fight people while shooting them and then beating them up with the gun that she's using and then inserting the cartridges into the. It's an amazing piece of choreography that it's worth the price of admission alone, in my opinion. I love the
color of it.
Yeah,
color. Yeah. It's so great, and the color of that explosion at the beginning of the chemical plant. I love how it embraces that comic book palette. It's great.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. But I will say, like that scene, that's specifically what I was saying. Like, that scene starts out of nowhere because we don't know the context of what she's doing in the police station. I just feel like, I would like for that choreography to feel better to me, but it's like that's this thing where like if you don't set up the stakes of an action scene, if you don't know why something is happening, and also like this is a police station, like I said, they have guns, they have weapons, like even in a comic book universe, I expect the police to put up more of a fight to one person coming in with a beanbag gun, but they just like ran away. People were just running away from her. She has a beanbag gun.
People
Come
do
on.
kind of nonsense things all the time in this movie. They're
Yeah.
like for instance, at the end of the movie, when Roman Sionis is sending in his men, he sends in the first wave of men with no guns for some reason, and then
He wants
later,
to watch the fight. Okay, he heard about the good choreography. He needs to watch the fight.
and then later on, the women like they kick all their asses, and they're kind of like walking out in this kind of right stuff-esque shot with their being badasses.
Yeah.
And then they walk right into this wave of gunfire. It's like, didn't you remember that there were Roman Sionists out there? Like, what was going on with that? Anyway.
Yeah,
So
they literally look out the window. They see like dozens of people. They beat up like 12 of them, and then they're like, "Well, we're done.
we're
we
done.
can just
Let's
walk out now."
Yeah,
which
let's
was
walk
a little-
outside. No worries there. So kind of weird. But I think it is pretty funny that, as Jeff kind of was indicating with his monologue there, that like Joker is not in this movie, but they made this character Roman Sionis into somebody who is like Harley Quinn theoretically is a psychotic killer, right? Like from my understanding of her mythos, her origin story, and some of the stuff that she does in Suicide Squad, and I think the movie really heavily downplays that, right? This movie really heavily is like, hey, this is not someone you need to be scared of. It's actually someone you should root for. Thumbs up,
Yeah.
is what I'm making. And then as a result, they have this character who is so evil that it's like he looks way better than her by comparison. And I think that is why he's as comically evil as he is, because if he was less comically evil, you'd be like, actually, he's preferable to Harley Quinn, in terms of how bad he is. So I think
Right.
that was like an interesting, they just, my question for you, Angie, I guess, is at the end of this movie, is Harley Quinn someone you actually want to root for? Like, has this movie changed her from being quote unquote bad guy to actually being good guy, in terms of like the comic book archetype?
I don't know if I'd say that she's like a hero. She does become a character that you root for, but I felt that way about her in Suicide Squad as well, the premise of which was here are all these evil characters that you're going to root for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this movie kind of basically tries to continue her upward trajectory then, right? What did you all think
sure.
of the relationship between her and Cassandra Cain in this movie, who is played by what's her name?
L.J.
Basco.
right?
Yeah.
I kind of understood what they were going for, but at the end of the day, it didn't quite work for me, because you're supposed to believe, like, from my perspective, this is the central relationship of the movie that kind of helps Harley Quinn become less selfish and turn herself around. And there's some nice moments with her and Cassandra, like eating cereal in their room and stuff. But I just didn't feel like I bought that relationship was meaningful enough to turn her life around.
I thought it was, yeah, I mean, I think it's a really cute relationship, but I think it suffers from a lot of the same problem that the rest of the movie does, which is that there's just so much going on here
Yeah.
that it took me a long time to be like, oh, this is supposed to be really important. Like, this is the main storyline. Like,
Right.
I liked what we saw of it, but I wish that maybe there was like 40% less stuff so that we could focus on
Mhm.
the things that matter more. It just seemed like this movie was trying to do way too much, as indicated by the several title changes where I can't decide if it's a Birds of Prey movie or a Harley Quinn movie or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Angie. I mean, this movie tries
Poland
to
movie.
tries to reintroduce Harley Quinn back to audiences, but it also tries to be a Birds of Prey origin story. Jeff, are you familiar with Birds of Prey? Do you have the understanding that you can?
Yes, I mean, I'm not, steeped in DC lore like I am with their distinguished competitor, but I'm, aware of Black
Mhm.
Canary and those, those
It's
characters.
basically like
Huntress.
a team of women crime fighters, right? That like I think
Yeah.
Barbara Gordon was one of the co-founders of Birds of Prey.
Right,
And-
Batgirl, yeah.
And it's I think it is weird. It's weird to title this movie Birds of Prey when the Birds of Prey are barely in the movie. They're in maybe 10% of the movie.
It was like an afterthought at the end of the movie. It almost feels like.
Right. And
but
then
yeah.
Harley Quinn is not in the Birds of Prey, as far as I can understand, right? So it's
Yeah.
weird.
But I mean, I
to
think
title-
this is the, I think from one perspective, this is the Birds of Prey origin movie. This is how they all meet. They come together. I buy it, but it does feel more like a Harley Quinn movie than it does that movie. It feels like two movies that are sort of competing with one another at a certain point.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just feel like even all these questions and discussions about the plot, I just go, it's not even, it just
Yeah.
doesn't even stand up enough to even.
That
have
is
this
most
discussion.
superhero movies, though. I would feel like every
Maybe.
superhero movie is like hero, avoids the villain or fights the villain who is fetching some weird object for, some shit. Like
Yeah,
it
I
is.
mean,
They're all the same at this point.
I think it's really not helped by the thing that you guys have pointed out a few times already, which is the time jumping.
Mhm.
When I was watching it, I mean, I understand what they're going for. You can see how that maybe the idea there was where in Harley Quinn's mind, she's a very kind of scatterbrained person. This is how she thinks, and I would buy that this is a character whose mental or inner monologue kind of
Mhm.
does jump all over the place like that. But something I think the pacing was a little bit off, so that it didn't feel like wacky and fun. It just felt kind of confusing. Like it would keep cutting away to the past for so long that I would forget we were in the past, and then when we got back to the present, I'd be like, "Wait, I'm sorry, what were we doing again?" And
Yeah.
like I get what they were going for. I just don't think it quite works. But I also feel like I'm complaining about this movie a lot, and ultimately, like these nitpicks, I did have fun with this movie.
I will say, finally, there's a movie that is centered on the idea that, first of all, a bacon, egg, and cheese is a very special thing, and to have
mean,
that
not
perfect
just that,
bacon,
but
egg, and cheese,
But a bodega bacon, egg, and
but a
cheese.
bodega, egg, and cheese, yeah.
New York.
And it's like
Ah,
if you lose it, that ruins your day. Like your whole day is just like gone. So I also love how even by the end, like her main thing against Renee Montoya, she's like, "You sandwich killer," basically. Like that is the big personal problem she has with Renee Montoya. So that is hilarious. I do like this movie really hangs on certain bits like that really well, and it really built up that bacon, egg, and cheese. So yeah, shout out to that.
It's literally a movie where one character goes, "When did she have time to change her shoes?"
Yes.
And then the movie's like, "You don't really care, do you, audience?"
It's
You know,
fine.
it
But
doesn't matter.
But I think that's what's great. That's something that's great about it, though, is like it embraces its over the top nature.
Mhm.
You know, everything about the movie is over the top, and very few characters in the movie are like quote unquote playing it straight in the sense of like like they're not taking, they understand what movie they're in. I think, and that's
Right.
that's great.
But I
about
also feel like for me where it succeeds most are the action sequences, because that's where the over the topness I think is best realized.
Yeah.
You know, that sequence toward the end where you have just that wonderful floating camera where all of the women are kicking ass in that crazy wacky room, and it's just the camera's just all over the place, bopping in and out, and they're using weird props and leaping off. I was like, oh, this is the movie. Here we are.
Yeah.
You know, and the same thing with that police action sequence where it's, you know, just color and craziness, and, you know, roller skates in a car and flipping back over the top. All of that stuff works really, really well because we're in this big comic book movie that it really is about being a comic book. And then I feel like the plot and everything doesn't quite have the courage of its convictions, doesn't quite go where it wants to go. Like if all of that time jumpy stuff really was, instead of going halfway, if they really committed to it and it was just this insane, you know, a person who has had a mental breakdown telling you a story, they were like, what would it be like if Harley Quinn told you a story? It would make you feel crazy. You know, I think that would be a kind of more interesting movie, but they kind of just go halfway and it falls flat, I think.
Yeah, it could have been sharpened up quite a bit. I will say, I brought up Renee Montoya. Shout out to Rosie Perez, by the way. I love that she is still around, still kicking ass in a great role like this. Like, this is a role, Renee Montoya is a role Rosie Perez was born for. So I'm very glad she got to finally play her tough New York City cop in a Batman movie. And also, Matt Singer, I believe, wrote a great piece about how this movie kind of has the energy of those Schumacher Batman movies and why that may be a good thing. And, you know, that energy is certainly something I had liked about those movies when I was a kid. I don't like them very much now, but I like the zaniness of those movies for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that I both liked and was a little bit disappointed by is that the Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn and Cassandra Cain, they're all so great when they finally come together at the end of the movie, but it doesn't happen till the end of the movie. So it takes a really long time to get there, and you know, the payoff is good, but it also is over too fast, and it left me being like, oh, well, I felt like we just got to the good part. I feel like we finally just got to know like Huntress and Renee Montoya, and then now we're just having to say goodbye to them until they decide to make a sequel.
Yeah, which is a problem that I think with many modern franchise movies these days, or would-be franchise movies, is they are often setups for future films that never happen. I don't know if that is actually going to happen in this case. Like, if there will be a sequel, if there will be a Birds of Prey movie, we'll see. It's possible, but
They'd be too busy working on the Ford v Ferrari sequel.
Indeed, indeed. So I want to acknowledge a couple comments in the chat room. We broadcast live as usual. Somebody, Leighton Munson, is suggesting that the movie should have been called Harley Quinn: Dawn of Birds of Prey, which I think definitely would have been good. And also
the fantabulous construction of a team of superheroines.
Yeah. Dawn of her. Yes. Yes.
That's terrible. And then also Cassandra Cain's uncle, the actress who played Cassandra Cain, her uncle is Rufio from Hook.
Dante Bosco.
Dante
Yes.
Bosco. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Oh man,
that's great.
so good.
That's great. You guys were talking about the bodega sandwich earlier. I do want to just acknowledge that this is a very different version of Gotham than what we've seen in previous movies. Than
sure.
even Joker, the version of Gotham and Joker, and certainly what we see in like Batman v Superman or Justice League. It's very grounded, right? I mean, it feels a lot like New York to me. And you two, like Devindra and Angie, you're the ones that lived in New York. Like, what does this remind you of from a location perspective?
It does feel like New York.
Yeah.
I don't know where they shot this, but this feels more New York than like the Nolan Batman movies for sure.
Yeah. But not like Manhattan, like one of the other boroughs, right?
Yeah, it feels like Brooklyn-y, I would say.
Yeah.
But like not now hipster expensive Brooklyn. Like it feels like the Brooklyn of people's imaginations from like the 90s or the 80s or something like that.
Yeah.
And it does feel very New Yorky in a way where I think I regularly forgot that it's not actually set in New York, that it's set in the fictional pretend version of New York. So kudos to them. I mean, the bodega sandwich, that was such a perfect detail.
Have you guys had bodega sandwiches? Are they actually good? I've never had a bodega sandwich.
Dave, what are
Dave.
you even asking over here? I wake
Dave,
up
I
and I
was
have a
not-
bodega sandwich. Like it is a way of life. I live and breathe them. Come on, I will get you one next time you're here.
All right.
I was not kidding when I said that bodegas and bodega sandwiches are the thing I miss
Yes.
most about New York. And I say that in full recognition that one of my good friends from New York, Devinder Hardwar, is on this very call.
All right.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Well, let me tell you my experience of going to see this movie. I basically had maybe I had 30 minutes to make the movie, right? And I gave myself a little buffer time because I knew when the trailers were on. So ran to the subway, but stopped by my friendly bodega, got myself a little turkey sandwich, hopped on the subway, ate that sandwich, made it to the movie with 1 minute to spare.
That's
That
a
is a New York
beautiful
miracle.
story.
And I had my sandwich. It was great.
So brave.
Beautiful. Harley Quinn would be proud.
So
Yeah.
brave.
All right.
Not
folks.
all heroes wear capes.
Yeah.
Including
I've
Harley Quinn
seen
from this
that
movie.
Yeah, I did.
Also, shout out to Mary Elizabeth Winstead playing Huntress, aka the Crossbow Killer.
Good.
That character had like a really interesting backstory, like with growing up in the mob, and then like I guess I kind of felt bad for the mob guy that saved her, because it's like she probably grew up and then murdered all of his friends. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Yes.
I think he kind of turned away from that when
he turned away from that lifestyle after they started slaughtering innocents, right?
Yeah. But I do like how the Harley Quinn narration of that is basically like her doing a Quentin Tarantino, thing of like, oh yeah, they murdered her whole family and she was raised by the mob. That was fun. And I also like how awkward Mary Elizabeth Winstead is as that character. It's like, oh, I gotta have my catchphrases, gotta have my name, gotta get people to know my name. I'm not the Crossbow Killer. I'm Huntress.
I
pretty
think that
funny.
was she was honestly one of my favorite parts of the movie, and
Yeah.
specifically just how awkward she is, because in a lot of ways she's a familiar character. Like you hear her backstory and you're like, oh yeah, we've seen that backstory for so many
Yeah.
comic book characters over and over. So the way that Harley Quinn tells it, fully tongue in cheek, fully aware of what a cliche it is really fun. And then when you actually meet her, you kind of, based on that backstory, you kind of expect her to be like cool like Batman, but she's a real dork like Lego Batman.
Love it.
Nice.
I did find myself wondering though how exactly that all goes down, because you gun down the entire family, and everybody's there, everybody's high-fiving because they pulled it off.
Listen,
and
listen, one guy volunteers, like, hey guys, I'll clean up.
Yeah,
Don't worry
yeah.
about it.
He
Don't
looks
worry
down,
about it. I
He
got
looks
this.
down. He sees the girl alive, and he's like, I'll carry all the bodies out.
Yeah.
You guys take a break. I know it was super exhilarating to
Yeah.
gun down the entire family.
Let's take a tight 5, everyone. Everyone just.
I'll haul these bodies down. Hey, Tony, why are you putting that body in your car? I don't want to.
Yeah.
Don't want to. I don't. I'm real a stickler for leaving, evidence. Want to get all the body. Well, then why don't you put all the bodies in your car, Tony? Okay. I was gonna start with this one girl, but I guess I'll do the whole family now in the car. And then he's got real bodies in his car, and you can't get stains like that out.
Like fish.
You gotta do it.
If he knew ahead of time that a lot of people were going to die and he was going to have to cart out some bodies, then maybe he already covered all his seats in plastic.
Yeah.
Good thinking. Yeah, that's good thinking.
Otherwise, you got to
I mean,
go
that's
full
just-
reupholstery and everything like that. It's expensive, is what.
Yeah, I like to think that they're practical. Yeah, but the other thing I'll say about Huntress is that the fact that she's awkward is perfect because when you hear that backstory, it also makes sense that she is an awkward person. Like, what in that story makes you think that she would have ever developed social skills? So I absolutely loved that about her.
I did think there was some cool stuff with Huntress at the beginning too. First of all, a lot of crossbows to the throat in this movie, which I realized, wow, I haven't seen.
It's a harder R than I thought it would be in terms of the violence. I think when going in, I did not remember there was R at all, so I was very surprised.
Where else do you shoot a crossbow? You shoot at the throat. That's what you do with a crossbow.
Yeah, it is what I've realized. I haven't seen crossbows to the throat that often. I don't see crossbows in general that often in movies, but then. And then when I do see them, I don't see them often go to the throat. But this was a lot of crossbows to the throat. I do think that the R rating kind of hurt this movie's box office prospects a little bit because at the end of the day, it is fun to hear Harley Quinn say the F word, and it's fun to see people get crossbows to the throat, especially if they're mob characters. But I don't know that it was necessary. Like, what do you guys think? Like, could this movie be
They
rated
should do
PG-13?
a censored. I feel like they should do a censored kid version and just like have fun bleeps and like unicorns over all the blood or something. Like really go full tilt with that.
Yeah. Didn't they do? I think they did a similar thing for Deadpool, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they
Yes,
did Once
yes.
Upon a Deadpool or something like that.
Yeah. Do the same thing for this and get out in theaters as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah, I agree, because even as someone who obviously is old enough to see an R-rated movie, I don't think that it added enough to the movie to make me be like, oh yeah, no, I'm so glad that this was an R-rated film.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I think that...
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, it also seems like a dynamic that would appeal to a lot of people who are not 18 and over. Like, I can imagine a bunch of high school kids being like, this movie looks really fun, let's go watch this, or even like middle school kids. So it's kind of a shame that the R rating does not add that much, and if anything, it's probably a little bit of a hindrance.
I will say there was one moment where I appreciated the movie's restraint, and I believe it has a woman director, right?
Yeah, Kathy Yan.
Yeah.
And I think you can tell in one particular moment, and I appreciated it, the moment where the black mask is humiliating that woman and making her stand on the,
Oh yeah.
and then it forces her to rip her dress off, forces someone else to cut her dress off. I thought certainly we were going to get the gratuitous nudity in that moment, and I appreciated that the movie made that humiliation and the vileness of that evil act land without having to give us, the full shot of her standing there on the table. I thought that was effective,
Mhm.
and they could have with an R rating gone there, and I'm glad the movie didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like this movie was pretty smart in general about how it kind of portrayed female bodies. Like, like what you raise is a really good point. There's also another scene where Harley Quinn is like clearly wasted, and some dude is trying to take advantage of her, and I kind of braced myself for like, oh, okay, so this is going to be upsetting, and that is not the direction it goes because then Black Canary intervenes. But in addition to that, one of the striking differences between Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, despite clearly sharing like a kind of shared DNA, was I thought the costuming in this one was a lot better, especially for Harley Quinn, but just in general. I thought it was interesting how her costumes in this one feel like clothes that she's picking for herself as opposed to clothes that she's picking like with this intention of being leered at by guys. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Huntress gets a mask for like a minute and a half, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then we don't ever see it again, and I was like, "Oh, I want to see that cool Huntress mask."
Gotta save something for the sequel, man.
I guess.
Gotta save it.
Yes.
But I think I agree with you all that like this is a movie that if it was rated PG-13, it might have made like 5 or 10 million extra dollars at the box office this weekend, and I don't know that they got enough from an artistic standpoint, to
Yeah.
not making it PG-13 to justify that difference.
Cut off some
Um,
faces. You have to cut off some faces.
But that wasn't even that graphic. You know what I mean? It just
It was pretty bad.
They,
I thought. I don't know.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It got me.
It was pretty bad. Like, he's introduced in the most upsetting way possible. The Sionis character for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, at the end of the day, seems like we all had fun with this movie, but it didn't necessarily rock our world or change what we thought is possible with a superhero movie. But hey, on the plus side, remember when having a conversation like this about a DC Comics movie was unthinkable? Like, we had this like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Justice League, like all in a row.
Yeah.
And that was like pretty rough, guys.
Some dark days.
But now I think this is like what, their 5th movie that they've done that's actually pretty solid, or that
Yeah.
certainly that at least people have enjoyed. I'm thinking of Aquaman. I'm thinking of Wonder
Mhm.
Woman, Shazam. This movie. There's one other one that I can't
Fun
recall.
movies.
Yeah, fun movie. Wonder Woman. The new one is coming out this year. So like they've really brought it back. I think to. From a pretty rough place, so I actually am looking forward to what they try next. And I have to say, Jeff, you might find this objectionable, but I would rather something like this that tries to do something really different and maybe doesn't fully succeed than yet another Marvel film. I think, like, just because we've seen so many, over 20 Marvel films that have done pretty close to the same thing. And this movie, it's whatever you have to say about this movie, it is very different than the normal Marvel film.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. So
Well, I think. Go ahead, Angie.
No, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I think that the key to DC doing this is just not caring about building a universe. Like, just make
Yeah,
fun movies.
make good movies. Make good
yeah,
movies.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the Joker is in one Joker movie as one Joker and another Joker movie as another Joker, and then this one is just talked about and then animated in some weird way. Like, who cares? We all get it. We all understand who the Joker is. It doesn't have to be the same actor. Let Marvel do that, and I think Marvel does it very well. I happen to like that stuff, but DC movies can be just these, bespoke things that work. And if you make them fun and make them interesting and have them do interesting things, then you don't have to worry about that stuff.
Angie, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it feels like once DC stopped worrying so much about trying to be Marvel, it seems like there was a market improvement. It seems like there was a lot more flexibility for these movies to kind of be their own thing and not stress so much about whether they overlap, even though they do. Like, Shazam is clearly set in the same universe as Justice League. This is clearly set in the same universe as Suicide Squad. But it seems like they've kind of stopped worrying about that too much. But the other thing I wanted to say is that if other superhero movies, including Marvel, decide to emulate anything from Birds of Prey, echoing what a lot of what you guys have said already, I think it's the action scenes. Like, it was so refreshing to watch action scenes where I was like, oh, these feel like actual action scenes and not just a bunch of like pixels crashing into each other.
Yeah. And there was some good action in some of the Captain America movies, right? But I agree in general. Like, this is probably certainly the best hand-to-hand combat in any DC movie, and possibly the best hand-to-hand combat in any superhero film of recent memory. So I think that is certainly worth celebrating as well. But yeah, Angie, I think what you're basically trying to say is this movie should have been titled Birds of Prey, or How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Make Individually Good Movies.
No, because they stopped worrying and learned to make individually good movies a while ago. That's literally what we're talking about. You should try
Thanks
listening.
for stepping on my, wrap up there, Angie.
Anytime.
Appreciate that, Angie. Okay, that's going to bring us to the end of our review of Birds of Prey. You can find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. Our theme song comes from adamwarrock.com. Our spoiler bumper comes from filmmaker Kyle Hillinger. And stay tuned to hear what we'll be doing next week. In the meantime, Angie, it's been so fun to have you on. Where can people find more of your work on the internet this week?
You can find my work at Mashable.com, and you can also find me on Twitter at AJHAN.
How about you, Devindra?
Or you can find me on Twitter at Devindra, and I write about tech at Engadget.com. Be sure to check out the Engadget podcast, which I'm co-hosting now.
And Jeff Canada?
We got more show coming, don't we?
We do.
Okay, I just want to be
That'll
clear
be
to the audience.
That'll be very obvious in the runtime of the podcast episode. I
Well,
think, so.
some people just don't pay attention, perhaps. I
Yeah.
just wanted to be
Look,
clear. There's more
look
show.
at your podcast player before you switch, is what I say.
You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Jeff Canada, which is spelled with 2 N's and 1 T. I do a video game podcast called DLC. You can find that at 5by5.tv/DLC. And I do a live play Dungeons and Dragons show that is epic storytelling, improvised every week. It is something I'm very proud of. I hope you check it out. It's called The Dungeon Run. You can find it as an audio podcast by searching for The Dungeon Run. You can find it on YouTube as a video show by searching for The Dungeon Run there. Or you can watch it live as we record Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific time live on caffeine.tv/The Dungeon Run.
I am all over the YouTubes this week. Check out my channel at youtube.com/Dave Chensky. That's Dave Chen SKY. Have a couple videos up there, including my reactions to the Oscars. And I also did a video with Patrick Willems this week. Made a dream come true there. I recorded a kind of a commentary on his recent video about Robert Zemeckis. Did that with Patrick. You can find that at his channel called Patrick Willems Presents. It's kind of his secondary channel. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, so check that out.
Can't believe you're saying you made his dream come true, Dave. That seems a little boastful.
I said it was my dream come true, Jeff. My dream. But in any case, so next week we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to just do what we've been watching and then have an After Dark episode. So that should be a lot of fun. But be sure to check that out. We're going to be talking about things like Mythic Quest. Jeff and I watched the things that we told each other to watch, including Cheer and Dracula. And we'll be talking about McMillions, the new documentary on HBO. So that's what we're going to be chatting about next week on the Slash Filmcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you later. All right, that's the end of the review. So, Angie, you going to hang around? You taking off?
No, I'm taking off. But thank you so much for having me on. That was a lot of fun.
This
Very
was a lot of
fun.
fun.
Thank you.
It was a
Good
blast.
show.
Thanks so much,
Later.
Angie. Appreciate it.
All right. Good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I guess we didn't pass the Angie test, guys. No,
I
I'm just
guess
joking.
not.
I'm just joking. All right, let's get going. I'm rolling. We're broadcasting. Let's just keep going, okay?
Yep.
Welcome to the Slash Filmcast After Dark. It's the part of the show that we're bringing back where we talk about a variety of random topics that we didn't get to during the show. This week, we're going to be talking about the Oscars. So, gents, I don't know about you guys, but I watched the entire Oscar ceremony. It was live tweeting the Oscars. I have to say, the Oscars is, in general, like my best night of the year from a Twitter perspective, both in terms of the quality of stuff I'm putting out, but also like the engagement on the stuff I'm putting. Like it's like the numbers are just crazy, crazy.
It's
Twitter
Dave's
is
Super
made
Bowl.
for the Oscars.
It's my
basically.
Super Bowl.
Like,
That's right.
Yeah.
It's my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, what is there to say except
It
that
feels like, Dave, this year for you on Twitter, fourth quarter, you were at your own 20 and you threw a Hail Mary and you won the game. That's what it feels like to me, maybe, perhaps. I'm just reading into it.
It definitely feels like. I mean, so I guess let me ask you guys, overall, what do you think of the broadcast? I think that the ratings just came out. They're down 20% from last year, which, by the way, was already the lowest that it's ever been.
It seems weird that maybe when you don't have a host,
Yeah. And a lot of disconnected skits. Things just
maybe
don't gel.
I think not having a host is part of it. I think also, in general, the most financially successful movies, like Avengers Endgame, are not a big part of the Oscars, right? Like the Oscars, in general, don't honor the movies that make the most money. The movies at the Oscars certainly do well, but like they're not the most successful ones.
I genuinely think, Dave, that is a very tiny part of the problem. And I genuinely think if you announced Kevin Hart was hosting the Oscars, there would be a massive audience for it.
All right. Well,
I
we both
genuinely
have different theories.
Dave Chappelle Oscars would, it would be insane.
Yeah.
I think honestly that they really underestimate what the billboard of Ellen DeGeneres leaning against the statuette and, all of the ads that they do of, Jimmy Kimmel, he's going to, I think those things have a big impact on whether people want to tune in or not. Nobody really cares about the speech from the costume designer. I'm sorry. They do care about the moments. And when you have, very funny people and very unpredictable things and all that stuff. I think that's much more interesting to people than the actual awards.
Let me
You also don't know who to expect for a lot of it. Like they got people, you know, they got famous faces to come on, but some of them did skits. There was a cat skit, but you don't know what to expect when you don't have a host, right? And like having some base level of expectations would be nice.
I mean, I'm also going to put it out there that the theatrical movie-going industry is dying is too strong a word, but declining. And people, like young people, are watching fewer and fewer movies. This is a statistical fact.
Listen,
And so
Mr. Quibi. Okay, I saw those Quibi ads too. They didn't brainwash me.
I'm just saying that
Dave is saying that they need more influencers and YouTube stars in the Oscars.
I think I'm just saying that actually all the reasons we just gave, Jeff, I think are equally plausible, and it's probably some combination of all of them. But Jeff, what did you think of the overall broadcast? Do you have any?
I will be completely honest and say I don't know. It's hard for me to be able to put my finger on what it is if it's just the fact that I have young kids now and my time is more taken or just where I am in my life. But I find myself as somebody who used to look forward to the Oscars in a way it sounds like you still do, just really not caring anymore. And it makes me feel sad because we do the show and I feel bad even saying it because I care deeply about movies and I care deeply about the industry and quality entertainment. And I love films that move me. And this year had a lot of films that we were all really passionate about in the running. And actually, it didn't feel like the cynical, well, I don't know. There was a pall of Joker all hanging over it for me for sure. But I just find myself not putting a lot of stock in this award or really any awards anymore. Like I used to think they were important, and now I just really don't. I really don't.
Well, even the pageantry of it too. Like I'm bored by the Oscar broadcast. Like occasionally we'll get something crazy. We'll get the La La Land and Moonlight situation, which I'm very glad I was sitting there and watching that live. Like, so I usually just leave it on in the background. Like this year, I was watching it. I was also writing and doing other work. Most of the interstitial stuff outside of the awards, I didn't really care about. Like Eminem popped up at one point, and that seemed 20 years too late for an award he never picked up, and he never performed at the show apparently. So people were saying like, "Oh, this is a late
There's
appearance
so many
for
people,
him."
saying like, when is Eminem finally going to get his chance to shine at the Oscar ceremony?
Yeah.
Not really. But
anyway, not really.
So Jeff,
It turns out you don't only got one shot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Jeff, are you saying you don't care about like the outcome of the awards or the ceremony, the broadcast itself, or both?
I feel bad saying this, but I really don't care about the outcome of the awards. I really don't. I really don't anymore. I used to care deeply about them, and I just don't think it means anything. I really don't. And I don't want to take anything away because I think this year was a really magical moment and really unexpected, and I think that that's pretty awesome. And I did watched like a 10-minute cut down of all the important parts.
Nice.
That's what I watched.
That's the way to do it.
It really felt like I saw the entire ceremony in 10 minutes. But man, that night I turned to my wife and I was like, I don't even want to turn the television on. Like it doesn't. And she's like, yeah, I'm not really interested either. And
Can we just stare at a blank box?
Well, we just hung out with our kids and like wrestled on the floor and did that stuff. And that's what most evenings are until they go to bed. So I feel bad, and I know that that a lot of people tuning into this podcast still care deeply about the Academy Awards. But I have found myself moving farther and farther away from, and it's not just this year. It's been over the course of several years now, where it just doesn't seem to mean anything to me.
Well, they've also certainly disappointed us quite a bit at times too. Like with Green Book last year, I think with a lot of the Joker nominations this year, I was pretty disappointed with like where things were headed. So I just keep it on for those brief surprises. And I was happy. Like I was laying on the floor, just super tired last night as they were reading Best Picture. And I was like, okay, like this is going to be Once Upon a Time. This is going to be something.
It's going to be something that disappoints us, basically.
And
hold on. Let's get to that. Before I get to that, though, let's talk about the rest of the. So, and we will get to it, Devendra. Trust me. The totally defensible position, Jeff. That's fine. So we won't be hearing too much from you during this After Dark then, and that's
Right.
okay. I think,
And I will say one more quick thing. I will say one of the things I remember being so excited about with the Oscars was what the opening thing was going to be from the host.
yeah.
And I think that that's really a loss. I think that's a loss, and it's
Uh-huh.
unfortunate.
So I think it's totally defensible because the Oscars are extremely political and people win for all kinds of different reasons. People win because of luck sometimes. People win because,
Advertising.
advertising and maybe their
Lobbying for it.
thing did a better campaign than other people. It's just like at the same time as it is, in my opinion, the most kind of artistically defensible awards in the sense that like the people that are actually in the industry are voting for them. It's also subject to any of the number of vagaries that can impact other awards and is subject to influence by all these things that aren't a function of how artistically valuable things are. And so I can totally understand not caring about them. And another thing is we've also seen that oftentimes the movies that are the most culturally significant or culturally relevant are not honored at the Oscars, right? And so
Yeah.
it's just like there is a question of how relevant they are. Especially in a Quibi age, in a post-Quibi age.
In a Quibi age.
How relevant are the
Man,
Oscars going to be, right?
Those commercials were really selling that service. I love there was the one who was president in that one, but there was one where like Mr. President, a comet is gonna destroy the Earth in 10 minutes, and everybody just pulls out their phones and watches their Quibi shows because that's the last thing you want to do on this Earth and not like call your family. This
No, that
man,
tracks. That tracks.
I feel like I sort of defended what Quibi was doing out of CS just because I was into the tech of it, but they're so like dumb about this whole thing. Like they're just forcing this 10-minute entertainment on us and assuming everyone's going to bite on it, and it's so silly. But I don't want to talk as much about Quibi. Have you guys seen the Independent Spirit Awards stuff that's been coming out? Because that is an awards show.
Yeah.
That seems like it's a ton of fun. Like Aubrey Plaza hosting. You got like great sequences. Like there, I don't know if you've
Adam
seen this, but
Sandler
there's
won an award and gave a great
Yeah.
speech. The
Great
Farewell
speech.
won, which is amazing. Yeah. So
yeah, and also Laura. Did you see the Laura Dern?
Yeah, the Laura
those-
Dern
that whole thing,
choir
like there's
performance.
this
Yeah.
great musical sequence that kind of honors everybody, but it's also like all about honoring the glory of Laura Dern. Those awards are so weird. It seems like it's set in like an airplane hangar. Like I've been to a lot of weird like event spaces here in New York, and it seems like that's probably LA, but it seems like one of those weird things that just it is not flashy at all. It seems like during the day it is an airplane hangar, and they just threw some seats in there, but it seems like they're having fun, whereas nobody in the Oscars really seems like that.
So early on, things started heating up when Bong Joon-ho won the award for Best Screenplay. That was a shock to me. I did not think that he was going to win that award. And when he won, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
And then he wins for Best International Film, which like I think everyone expected that. Everyone
Yeah.
expected the Parasite would win.
That was going to be the consolation prize.
That was going to be a consolation prize for not winning
Right.
Best Picture, right?
Best
That's
Or
how
any other
everything
vision.
goes, right? That's how
Right.
the world should work,
Yeah.
I guess.
And then, so then, like, we should acknowledge that, like, Joaquin Phoenix won for Best Actor, and I was pretty harsh on his speech on the night of on Twitter, but looking back on it, I appreciate that he was trying to use his platform to kind of speak out for
Speaking from the heart.
speaking
It
from
is
the heart,
not.
but it's
Yeah.
not the message that I had a problem with. It's like the delivery of it.
But
that
if you didn't think he was going to do that, you hadn't been watching all the other award speeches that he had been given this entire season.
No, I know. I have seen them.
Every single one of them.
I have
was
seen them,
that.
and I was dreading it.
Yeah.
I was dreading this, and it wasn't great, but it was. I would say it was better than Renee Zellweger's speech.
Oh
which
God. Yeah.
I thought
that felt like it went on for hours almost.
It was painful.
Like
That was painful. It was.
it was
painful.
harsh.
Yeah. It was really nice to see Laura
Have
Dern
either of
win.
you-
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
have either of you seen Judy?
I have not. Yeah.
Yeah, me neither. I'm curious, but yeah.
I have seen. It was really nice to see Laura Dern win the Best Supporting Actress and kind of acknowledge her mother as well, and that was like a very touching moment. And then Bong Joon-ho wins Best Director, And
What a great speech that was.
so
man.
good, very, very moving speech. He acknowledges like Martin Scorsese, who is probably the best director alive today, right? And everyone gives him a standing ovation. And it's very moving. And I will say that despite him using a translator, his Bong Joon-ho speeches were short, heartfelt, to the point. You know, he got in, he got out.
Somebody that knows how to use a translator effectively.
Yes.
He had time to think. He had time to think. Whereas everybody else,
beautifully timed, beautifully punctuated translator who knew how to handle the situation. That is an art that is underappreciated. That is not an easy thing to do. As somebody that has watched many video game speeches that are gone through translators, it is harder to pull off well than you might think. And that it flowed, it was beautiful, it was in wonderfully digestible chunks, and it had a rhythm to it that was great.
Yeah.
And I love the thing he said about, I wish I had a Texas chainsaw to cut this into chunks to give a piece to everybody. I thought that was a beautiful thing to say, a Texas chainsaw instead of just a check. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I'm like, okay, well, we're just gonna see a repeat of what happened last year, where Roma won Best International Film and Best Director, and then the Best Picture goes to some random other movie that's probably not as deserving. That's kind of what I had resigned myself to, right? Devindra, I assume you were experiencing.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so we're like, okay,
but
that's
Best
fine.
Director seems like I'm sure you were already feeling like that's pretty awesome.
Oh,
Yes.
what an amazing night already! Like, I would have
Yeah.
been super happy if that was where it ended. You know, like that's great. And then Jane Fonda gets on stage, and we should say like her delivery was excellent. Right?
She is a goddess.
Yes.
She's a goddess.
Get that tension up there.
Study her reading out the Best Picture winner, and it is like she opens the envelope. You have a split second to see the emotion register, and then she looks directly at the winners, and then says Parasite in a very kind of firm, but also like a very a tone that's kind of in awe as well. And I freaked the fuck out when that happened. I mean, I don't know about you, Devindra, but like I was like jumping up and down. There was tears.
Yeah.
There's tears.
I couldn't do that because of the baby, but I definitely shut up and said "Holy shit" out loud.
I
room.
think if someone had asked me if I had to make one wager for my life on Best Picture, and I could pick Parasite or The Field, like that was my choice. My choices. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I mean, I guess that's not a way to. The point I'm trying to make is, I thought because it is up for Best International Film, there's no chance.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's no chance.
It's like, hey, we already honored it with the Best International. That way we don't quote unquote have to honor it with the Best.
We don't
Picture.
have to use up a spot later because it's got its own category that it wins Best Picture for. You know, that has been the case multiple times with foreign language films that have broken through to be considered in the Best Picture category. Almost always they just own that international category, and then it feels like, oh, we awarded it. So I feel like I would have put all my money on anything but Parasite. You know what I'm saying?
I should point out, I actually looked up the odds, and 1917 was heavily favored to win, but Parasite was actually number 2. So it wasn't actually as unlikely as I think a lot of people thought it was. But yeah, I thought 1917, I think, had won both the Producers Guild and Writers Guild, I want to say. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think it did really well at those awards. So it was the heavy favorite coming into this ceremony. And it's indescribable. I think I just want to explain like why it was such a powerful moment, because first of all, I mean, and just to be 100% clear, I'm not South Korean, but I have been a big fan of Bong Joon-ho's movies for decades at this point. I've always been a huge fan and tried to champion his movies any chance I get. And the fact that Parasite won Best Picture, number one, means like from this point forward, the Best Picture winner can come from anywhere, literally anywhere in the world. And that's just not something I've ever felt before. Like I feel like anything is possible now. going forward, like next year or the year after, it's like, oh, well, so certainly this movie's going to win. It's like, well, it could literally be anything, and that's very like invigorating and exciting. But also, it's an acknowledgement that that this movie that's told by these Asian filmmakers with these Asian actors, it was so good. It was so good that even like, going up against movies that starred Meryl Streep and Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio and Saoirse Ronan and Laura Dern, whatever, like movies directed by Quentin Tarantino that have made hundreds of millions of dollars. Parasite's only made like 35 so far. That despite those insuperable odds, this movie is so good that everyone could still recognize its quality and honor it. And there's something really special about that. Like, if you watch the reaction in the audience when Parasite is called out, I think Shea Serrano tweeted, it's like when the home team wins at the playoffs. Like, everyone was just so excited about it. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment that I never thought I would see in my life, of like all these amazing Asian people taking the stage and accepting the award for Best Picture. I will never forget it. So, anyway, all that said, Jeff, I understand you didn't care too much about it.
No, I feel bad. I mean, I think you spoke beautifully just now, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And that's why I felt a little guilty even expressing how I feel, because I don't want to take anything away from that. I think.
You can't. Oh, you can't, Jeff. You can't.
No,
so
I
it's okay.
don't. I mean, don't frame it that way. I don't mean to say. I'm just saying that I just, yeah. No, yeah. Let that be the last word, or whatever you guys continue to say. But I'm so happy for that, and even just reading the winner shocked me and made me happy, especially for you guys who I know love that movie so much. And I'm, I really expected it to be like Joker or something, and I'd just be like, all right, here we another year.
Thank God, like Joker, I was expecting more of a Joker sweep. So Joker got what, Best Actor, which that was at least a good performance in a bad movie. Like I'll give it that. I was shocked Joker got Best Score. A notable thing for being a female composer for that, but I honestly forgot that movie had a score. Like nothing about it left much of an impact on me.
I think the score is great in that movie.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say I think the score is great. It's very atmospheric. It's very moody. It's very upsetting. I think.
I'm just like, I'm not joking. I literally do not remember the score of that movie. Like, I don't know if I was just like trying to push the entire movie out of my mind as I was watching it. Even as they played the bits of that score for the awards thing, I was like, oh, that's okay. I guess I heard this score at some point this year.
It's
just
very
so
atmospheric, Devindra. It's very atmospheric.
Sure.
But the net result of last night's Academy Award ceremony is that like more people are going to watch Parasite. I was at Trader Joe's today, and people were talking about how, hey, did you see the Oscars last night? And then like the cashier at Trader Joe's like, the right film won, and that made me really happy to hear. And I think I read online that they're
Trader Joe's very well known for their great taste in films.
Indeed.
I've had a lot of great movie conversations.
Great taste in snacks and in movies, Jeff.
That's right.
But I think Neon is probably going to do another theatrical release of the movie, is my understanding. They're going to try to push it out into more theaters, and that's really exciting. And that's kind of the power that the Academy Awards can still wield, is whoever wins Best Picture, it does lead to a bump in the box office, and that's going to be very exciting to see. But I think in also casting their votes for Parasite, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences voted for the future as well. Like the future in which storytelling and storytellers come from a wider variety of places than they have in the past, and that's very exciting and encouraging.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I would hope so. I had the same feelings after Moonlight, and then what did we get? We got Green Book. We got a couple things. I feel like maybe we'll see a back and forth. Maybe we'll see a very
maybe the
progressive
pendulum will swing back the other way.
Yeah,
I do just want to say before we wrap up that I got a lot of nice emails, and maybe we'll read them on the next episode. But we got several nice emails from people who've been listening to us for a long time that their first thought when they saw Parasite 1 was to think of what our reaction would be. And some people logged on Twitter and they tweeted at me I literally just logged on to see what your reaction to the Parasite win would be, and that was very sweet to get those emails, and we really appreciate it. But anyway, historic night. People have been saying, by the way, this is like New York Times said this is the first foreign language movie to win Best Picture, but that I have to say that is a little confusing to me because like The Artist, for instance, won a few years ago. That didn't have any.
It had English.
It had
like,
English subtitles, but it had no.
Yeah.
It had no spoken language. So
Don't
maybe
take
that's...
this award away from yourself, Dave. Come on.
All right,
What are you
fair enough.
doing right now?
Fair enough. Okay. Well, anyway, we got to wrap up here, but just want to talk a little about the Oscars. And if you were as excited as I was, I'm glad, and we all got to have this moment together. So that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.